What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Hoops Crew. My name is Ben Reeve. I'm joined by my good mate, Jake. How you going, Jake?
Excellent. Thanks for having me on, Ben.
Let's talk about season review of 2024, Jake. Now, the rundown for tonight's show, the wins, the losses, the team stats, the individual stats, Jake, the records, the awards, milestones, injuries, a few suspensions, not too many, plenty of retirements that we've heard about in recent days, some delistings. We'll finish off with some player rankings and maybe some big stories from the year if we haven't already touched on them. But, Jake, take us through some of the wins of 2024.
You got to start with dessert. We're having dessert first here, talking about the wins. Round one, obviously we started the season an 8-point win over the Saints down at Kardinia Park. Joel Selwood's stand was opened with a bang. Round two, went over to Adelaide Oval. Tough one. We had some players out, but we won by 3 goals, 19 points, a record, 10 intercept marks to Tommy Stewart. Round three brought the Scummers to us at the MCG. We beat the Hawks 36 points, the margin. Massive weather delay. Tommy Hawkins, a little bit of trouble for checking on the state of his cattle during that. Round four, the Doggies, also at Adelaide Oval. Thought they moved from Footscray to Western, not Adelaide. But anyway, that was part of Gather round. Beat them by 4 points in a rip-roaring contest. North Melbourne was no contest. Jeremy Cameron, 6 goals on the way to a 75-point flogging. 26-point win against Brisbane on the weekend that I was married. Tom Stewart, a concussion. That was a bit of a bummer, but a good win in the wet. Round 7, a 13-point win against Carlton. Round 12, bit of a gap there between round 7 and round 12 in terms of between drinks on the wins column. A 30-point win against the Tigers. Again, bit of a gap. Round 16 was our next win, 45 points over Essendon, a 7th straight win against the Bombers. We thrashed the Scummers in round 17 down at Kardinia Park, eviscerating the Hawks by 51 points. Round 18 beat Collingwood. Who didn't beat Collingwood really this season by 20 points. Round 20, 40-point win against North Melbourne down at Blundstone Arena. Gary Rowan's last game. Round 21, 5-point win against Adelaide. I was at this one. Jeremy Cameron, Lawson Humphries' first goal. A great road win. Round 22, 11 points over the Dockers over there in the West. A great fourth quarter comeback. Finished the season off, the regular one that is, with a 93-point win over West Coast down at KP. Jeremy Cameron banging through 9 goals. And then, of course, our final win for the season, the qualifying final, Ben, an 84-point demolition job of Port Adelaide and into a 9th prelim final under Chris Scott. So plenty to celebrate, 15 wins for the season in total. What were your sort of favourites, Ben?
Well, you can't go past the qualifying final, clearly, and that'll one of the most recent wins that we've had. But for me, if I'm looking back through that list, Jake, the Fremantle away win was huge. The 11-point win coming from behind in the fourth quarter. Paddy Dangerfield was huge. I took a strong mark there. He was Superman, really. That one for me. I mean, you love it. You love every win. The 2 wins against the Hawks, they're all great. It was a good year. As you said, 15 wins. You take that with the qualifying final in there as well. You take that. Could have been 16, maybe 17 if things had gone a little bit differently in that preliminary final. But that does take us to the losses, Jake, for the year. There were 8, sadly. The round 8, the first time we had a loss was all the way in round 8. 8 points against Melbourne. Jezza just went, he was off. The radar was off in the fourth quarter there for Jezza. Round 9, 2 losses in a row here. The 6-point loss against Port Adelaide at GMHBA. We hadn't beaten them they hadn't beaten us for a while there. And Ken Hinkley was giving it to the crowd. I know you weren't happy about that, Jake. I'll come back around and ask you about that in a second. 64 points in round 10 against the Gold Coast Suns. Oh, a horrible game in the slippery conditions up there. The umpires didn't like Chris Scott that game, that's for sure. 3 free kicks to 17 at halftime. Round 11, 4-point loss against GWS at GMHBA. Another one where maybe the umpires influenced the game. But our worst losing streak, Jake, 4 games in a row at that point. Things weren't too great. But round 13, back on the winners list, the round before, 30-point loss against the Sydney Swans after we thought we were going to win this one. 6 goals. The first 6 goals of the game were absolutely flying, leading by 35 points at one point in the second quarter there. And round 15, Carlton, 63-point loss. It looked like Carlton was going to win the premiership this stage. I think I went on Twitter and maybe YouTube calling saying the season was done. Can't get away from that. The battle of the Conning brothers was probably more what that game was famous for. And round 19, 47-point loss against the Bulldogs. A horrible display from the Catters at home in an absolute mud pit, and didn't the players hate it? Round 23 against Marvel after coming off the massive win against, or the very prideful win against Fremantle over interstate, but coming back home and losing by 18 points against St Kilda after leading by 6 points at halftime. That was terrible. And the preliminary final, Jake, it's still pretty fresh. The wounds are still there. A 10-point loss after being in front in the last couple of minutes of the game. Jake, take me through. What was the ones that stand out for you that hurt the most?
Oh, I mean, it's always a bit painful to lose a prelim final, but then, you go off your preseason expectations, and to make top 4 and then make the final 4 was really impressive. So, I don't know. That one didn't, it stung in the moment, but honestly, I haven't really thought about it much since. I thought Brisbane were fair value for the win, quite deserving, I thought. The ones that really stuck in my craw, probably the loss to the Dogs just felt like a little bit of a just a really insipid effort at home. I know it was tough conditions, but that one really sort of stuck with me for a while. I don't know, like when you have a year, we sort of got to get a bit of revenge for a lot of the games, that we lost, particularly the Port Adelaide one. I was dead set after that game. I said, give us Port in the finals. Give us Port in the finals. It'll go a completely different way. We figured them out in the second half. They won't have anything on us. So I felt very validated when we went over and did the job of them in Adelaide. So, yeah, maybe the St Kilda one too sticks out as just like an inexplicable, like, how did we lose that sort of thing? But when you have as many wins as we did this year and get as far as we did, I don't know, it's hard to dwell too much on the bits and pieces that went wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah, Kenny Hinkley, suck it, mate. We smashed him. But every loss hurts, Jake. Every loss hurts, that's for sure.
Yep, absolutely. Probably a good moment too here, Ben, to get in a quick word from our sponsor. The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist, established in Geelong since 1915. Visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au. That's Cook with an E. Give them a call on 035 222 2244 or mention the Hoops Crew to get yourself 20% off your next in-store purchase when you visit them at Shop 12, 11 Leather Street in Breakwater.
All right, Jake, take us through some of the key team stats for this year.
The key team stats, I mean, 15 wins plus the final, so 16 wins, 8 losses plus the one final loss, so 16 wins, 9 losses, pretty, decent when you win 2/3 of your games. Our highest score was against West Coast, 168, no real surprises there. Lowest score probably was a bit of a surprise, 48 points against the Dogs in that home loss. Average winning margin, 35 points. Average losing margin was 27 points. I reckon that's up on previous seasons. I felt like that was probably a little bit of a hallmark of this season, unlike others, is that when we lost, we often lost comfortably, which is just not something I think you would have seen from us previously. Our biggest winning streak was 7, biggest losing streak was 4, and members up to 90,798 members, 5th in the comp. Not bad for Sleepy Hollow. Ben, do you have any sort of thoughts on the old team stats before you transition to the next topic?
Yeah, real quick, just the seven wins in a row and the 4 losses in a row. It's a strange season, wasn't it? And all clubs would say at various points of the year that they were up and then they were down. But yeah, it's very rare you see 7 wins on the trot and then 4 losses on the trot. A crazy year. I'm going to take you through some individual stat leaders, Jake. For us, for the disposals, it was Max Holmes, 604 for the year. Goals, clearly it's Jeremy Cameron. Tom Hawkins has been that man. Was that man years gone by, 11 times in a row he was. Goal assist, who else but the assistant Lionel Messi, Brian Myers with 26. Did I say Jezza had 64 goals? I am saying it again if I haven't already. Tom Atkins, the tackling machine, 142 tackles leading the way for the Catters. Zach Guthrie, yes, that's right, Zach Guthrie, the most marks for Geelong in 2024 with 150. Clearances, here's one that surprised me as well. Tanner Bruin, the most clearances for the Cats with the Devils number 87, or the unlucky if you're in cricket season at the moment. And the 1%ers, Jake, I know you love a 1%er. Jack Henry with 131 percenters, the most at the Catters. Anything stand out there from you, mate?
Oh, mate, Jack Henry just doesn't care. You know, he doesn't care. Where's the effort level? Drop him back to the 2s. Funny that, most 1%ers by any player. And again, just to transition, you know, some talk during the recent weeks about, you know, we should delist or trade Tom Atkins. Yeah, the bloke who led us in tackles by a fair margin as well. Those two sort of stand out. Zach Guthrie standing up, taking 150 marks. You know, you probably would expect that of, you know, Tommy Stewart or someone years gone by. His transition, Zach Guthrie, from sort of skinny blonde weed a couple of years ago to what he is now, it's pretty remarkable. So yeah, those sort of are the numbers, I suppose, that stand out to me. Going to talk about some records.
Please do.
One of the first one's not that great to talk about. Our 16th highest ever score conceded. That was in the Gold Coast game. We could not stop a nosebleed that night. 164 points conceded against the Suns. The 5th most accurate ever scoring game against Hawthorn, a scoring accuracy of 80.95%. And Max Holmes, 11 bounces in a game. It was the best in the AFL in 2024. That one doesn't surprise me too much, Ben. Max Holmes breaking records as it pertains to running bounces.
I love the Hawthorn one, though, because they would have been so pissed off. Like, we just can't miss. We can't miss. And there's like, oh, come on. At least miss half the shots on goal. But no, we were just hitting everything that night. That was a great one. Jake, I'll take you through some of the awards for 2024, some of the award winners. We didn't have as many as years gone by. It wasn't like 2007 where we had 8 or 9 All-Australians. But Jerry McCameron, I always say that Jeremy Cameron, All-Australian, the only All-Australian this year. Ollie Dempsey, the rising star. He did give a special thank you to a few other players in his acceptance speech. That was nice of him. And Max Holmes, the club champion, the Carji Greaves medalist for 2024. And his speech went for about 10 seconds. Jake, I thought he could have done a little bit more. Maybe he was getting the wind up because the night was dragging a little bit long because Chris Scott and Patrick Dangerfield spoke for about 40 minutes. Jake, take us through some of the bigger milestones this year, though.
Oh, well, obviously, you know, a club legend departs in Tom Hawkins, but he set some records along the way. You know, obviously surpassing 350 games, but he also set the new club record, 359 games played. Pretty incredible. Mark Blixarves up to 250 games, 150 for Tom Stewart, 150 for Reece Stanley. And Zach Guthrie and Brad Close both bring up the century, half centuries for Sam de Koning and Tyson Stengel. AFL games for Sam de Koning, club games for Tyson Stengel. And debuts in terms of milestones. A year that you make the prelim, you also get debuts into Sean Manor, who was exceptional, Lawson Humphreys, double times as exceptional. And yes, Connor O'Sullivan made his debut, the classic, let's put him in the soft kill game against North Melbourne. Then he drop him back to the 2s. Developing well, Connor O'Sullivan in the VFL. So all 3 made their debut, in 2024.
Good on him. I should say 150 club games for Reece Stanley. Now, speaking of games, Jake, we had a few Catters that played every single game possible this year. They were Max Holmes, Brian Myers, Zach Guthrie, Ollie Dempsey, Tyson Stengel, Brad Close and Jack Henry. And doesn't it make a difference when Jack Henry actually has a nice, good run at it? It doesn't come off, doesn't have too many injuries. But we did have a few injuries though, Jake, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. I'll just say a bit of cruelty in the fact that Max Holmes played every game this season, but was cruelly injured. Speaking of injuries, in the final half of our season, Cam Guthrie missed 21 games this season due to injury. Toby Conway missed 20. And sadly, both of those somewhat predictable. You sort of went into the season crossing your fingers, your toes, and your eyes, hoping that those guys would get healthy. Just couldn't do it, and it's a real shame. So, yeah, Cam Guthrie, 21 games out injured. Toby Conway, 20. Tom Hawkins, obviously his season and career cut to an early finish. 13 games missed due to injury. Gary Rowan, 13 games. And Patrick Dangerfield, 9. I mean, you look at that with like Danger missing 9 games. The fact you still made a prelim and we won plenty of games when Dangerfield wasn't in the side. I don't know, leaves me feeling pretty emboldened about 2025. Obviously missed some games due to injury, but we missed a couple of games due to some other reasons as well, Ben.
Yeah, some thugs at the Geelong Football Club in Mark Blitzarves and John Clark. Some absolute thuggery going on. I think just some soft ones there from the match review panel. One game each, I think in the same game even possibly. So wasn't too bad. So, yeah, generally well-behaved Cats were this year. I was very happy to see that and getting themselves into too much trouble. I think Dangerfield was the big one. Might have got off on a tribunal appeal or he challenged it, I think it was. Jake, some big retirements. You did touch on it before, I think. With I'll let you go through this one, but the 2 big retirements this year.
Yeah, Tom Hawkins, the new club games record holder. Yeah, calls time. It was probably time, but really sad to see Hawkey hang him up. I felt like he kind of did it in a very selfless way too, personally. Some players might have pushed harder, maybe, to oust someone like Shannon Neal from the lineup. I think
it doesn't sound like Tom Hawkey to be selfless. Like that doesn't sound like him at all, Jake.
No, not at all in keeping with character. Zach Tui, another great footy player, great clubman for the Cats. Calls time. The Moroccan sunset walks off into the sunset. Zach Tui, 288 games played in his career. So, yeah, Zach Tui is one of my favourite players, Ben. So it is sort of a bittersweet feeling. Great to have seen him win his flag in 2022, but I'll be sad not to see him out there in 2025, even though it was probably the right call.
I think we'll see him in the media, though, Jake, based on his performances at the Cargie Greaves night. It was a privilege to see him and Tom be interviewed for 3 hours on the couch there. That was terrific, but he cracked a few jokes. He had the crowd in stitches all night long, but also sad, not players retiring, but some players that have been delisted. It's always a sad time of the year, especially I know you especially follow these guys in the VFL a lot. But some of the bigger names I'll start with first. Gary Rowan, 204 AFL games, has been delisted. A little birdie tells me he's very, very keen to play on. Heard some whisperings in the toilets at the Country Groups medal that he's keen to keep playing. Brandon Parfitt, I know Chris Scott would love him to get picked up elsewhere, but unfortunately his papers were stamped at Geelong and he wasn't going to get any more opportunities. But some players who didn't unfortunately get to play a single game after getting drafted or rookie listed in there: Phoenix Foster, Emerson Jacka, Oscar Murdoch, Reece Willis, Mitch Hardy. Now, I should say Emerson Jacka may have played some senior footy with the Hawks. You might be able to confirm that, Jake, but I'm pretty sure he did play a senior game or two, but just not for the Cats.
Yeah, it definitely rings a bell. It wouldn't stun me at all if Rowan plays on. Like, I don't know, if I was, say, like, I don't know, like a North Melbourne or someone who went, geez, it'd just be nice to have an experienced kind of impact player. We don't have to play him necessarily every game, but we can sort of manage him through. I kind of think that why not take a punt on a 1-year deal? And I think he's still probably got something to offer. Yeah. Sadly, a lot of the others probably make some degree of sense. I've got more thoughts on that, but I'll save it for a time where we can sort of flesh it out in greater detail. But yeah, I think there's some practicality and logic to a lot of the players who have played their last game at the Cats. Now, some Cats who haven't played their last game. Playing on, Mitch Duncan currently sits on 296 games. I get the idea that those 4 games between 296 and 300 fairly important to him. Reece Stanley, much to probably a lot of people's surprise, playing on 210 games currently. I like that one personally, that he's going to be there. Jed Hughes, another one. There was lots of talk during the season that this was Jed Hughes last season. Doesn't look like that's the case. Contract extension, 171 games played. So I think those 3 were all variously retired at different points by the Cats fan base in 2024, but all will be playing more games next year.
I can't believe we could be talking about Reece Stanley playing 250 games in a couple of years. If he has a good year this year, they'll probably offer him another one as well. Toby Conway, the jury's out in terms of his body and whether it's going to hold up at the level. But really happy to see Jed Hughes go on again. Hopefully he's resting up after getting some wisdom teeth out the other day, Jake. Now, Jake, this is a little bit more subjective, this next section. We're going to talk about some player rankings. Now, I've done these notes, so you can do this in any way you want. But I'm going to go through the players that have played 200-plus games, and I'm going to rank them in terms of most important to least important to the football club. That's how I'm going to rank them. It's not so much how good they are or how well they played this year, but most important to least important. You following me, Jake? All right, here I go.
Think so.
Number 1, the most important player at the Cat that's played more than 200 games, Jeremy Cameron. Now, he's followed by Tom Stewart, Mark Blitzarves, Cam Guthrie, Tom Hawkins. You can pretty much draw a line through Tom Hawkins, Mitch Duncan, Patrick Dangerfield. Might not agree with that. Zach Tui, Gary Rowan, a couple of names that have moved on. Reece Stanley and Tyson Stengel. What's Tyson Stengel doing here? He's in the wrong spot. Ignore I just said Tyson Stengel. He's down there. Where has he played these the 70 or 130
Come on,
odd
Colin.
games? I don't know, Colin. Fix it. Now, you might not have liked the Paddy Dangerfield one being a bit lower there. What do you think about that one?
So is this spiritual importance? Like, is it important to the club, or is it like on field, like going into next year? Like,
if Paddy Dangerfield gets injured for 18 games next year, what's it going to cost us versus someone like a Cam Guthrie? Who do you think is more important to the success of the football club? I'll just compare those two, Cam Guthrie and Patrick Dangerfield. People will be screaming at me through the camera right now. I'm sure of it.
I'd probably put Danger behind Tom Stewart personally. I think in terms of the impact that would, if we lost him for the season, I think you're right. Cameron, Stewart, then I'd probably have Danger. Then I'd probably have Blix. I think apart from that, it's pretty accurate. I'd just have Danger probably 3 or 4 spots higher for me.
Fair call. Fair call.
Yeah, but apart from that, I can kind of agree with it.
Tyson Stengel's played 85. We'll come to Tyson Stengel in a little bit.
All right. All right. Did you want me to do these next ones? 100 to 199 games.
Yes. Now, should point out, I did do the order of these. Now, and maybe I didn't put these in any particular order. So you order them how you want, Jake. So I don't think I actually put the time and effort into ordering this group.
All right. So no worries at all. Out of this group, so Tom Stewart's in here again, but I'm assuming he's not because he was in the first group. So we'll go. All right, cool. So I think out of these, Tom Stewart, if he's meant to be in this second grouping of 100 to 199 games, I would put Tom Stewart at the top of this group, and the rest of the players in this group, for context: Jake Kolajasny, Brian Myers, Brad Close, Zach Guthrie, Brandon Parfitt, Jed Hughes, Jack Henry, Tom Atkins, Mark O'Connor, and Jack Bowes. At a glance, I'd go Stewart, I'd go Myers, I'd go probably Henry and Kolajasny and Atkins at a similar sort of place, then close.
Where's Zach Guthrie's love? Where's Z-Bang in all of this?
Oh, I
Calm
thought I
down,
had.
mate.
Sorry, I thought I had him in that. So Stewart, yeah, maybe he's sort of in that. Just the tier below Stewart and Myers, maybe. Right, rather than just this tier below Stewart. So I'd have Stewart, then I have a sort of cluster grouping of Myers, Zach Guthrie, Jack Henry, and Jake Kolajasny. Kolajasny probably the last one of those guys. Then I'd go into Brad Close, Tom Atkins, then probably Bowes, O'Connor, Parfitt. I think that's all of them. If that makes sense.
It does. I love Jed Beers, but I'd probably have him at the bottom and maybe Jake Kolajasny a little bit higher up. But Parfitt, he's not going to be with us anymore anyway. But all right, let me do the next group, Jake. Now, these are players that have played 10 games to 99 games, okay? And they are, and I'll read them out and then I'll come back around and I'll give you my top three and then maybe see if you agree with me on that one. So they are Max Holmes, Sam DeConning, Ollie Henry, Tanner Broon, Ollie Dempsey, Tyson Stengel, Shannon Neal, Oisin Mullen, Jai Clark, Mitch Nevitt, Sean Manna, and Lawson Humphreys. Now, Jake, my top three, clearly Max Holmes is going to be in the top three, surely. And then I reckon you've got Tyson Stengel, and the third spot would have to go to, I'm going to say Lawson Humphreys, mate. And it's not just because I love him. I think he's going to be a special, special player at this football club. What about you? Out of that group, would you have anyone different in the top three? Maybe Lawson doesn't fit for you.
No, I think you've got it just about bang on. Like Holmes is like a clear. I think there's a gulf between Holmes and everyone else, even amongst the top three. So I'd have Holmes one. I think you're right then with Stengel and Humphreys. Manna and Dempsey would be quite close to that group for me. Yeah, so they'd be sort of the next in line for me. The 4 and the 5 would probably be Manna and Dempsey. But I think we'd probably shown this year that when Dempsey was down, we were still able to probably win some games. That's not to say he hasn't done impactful things, but yeah, that's probably how I agree with your top three, and then I'd probably be looking at Manna and Dempsey as the 4 and 5, the next men up.
That's a good list, though, isn't it? I love it. Look at those names. It's going to be a good 5 or 6 years for the Cats ahead. But finish us off, Jake, with the guys that have played less than 10 games.
Yeah, so we've got Toby Conway, Ted Closey, and Connor O'Sullivan. I would have it probably in terms of AFL impact for the Cats. There's only one of these players that's probably making a big impact in 2025. That's Toby Conway. Like, surely it's all about let's get Conway right for 2025. So he's the one, because what's the plan? If Conway gets injured for all of next season, you're pivoting back to Stanley, which is almost certainly the break glass in case of emergency thing. Like, I really think that the plan next year will be go in with Conway. That's the idea. Game one through to the end. That's their preference. But it's like a quarterback room in the NFL. You want the future there playing games, and we've got our Joe Flacco, our Case Keenum backup in Reece Stanley. Very capable, but we'd prefer to be rolling with the young guy. So Conway a clear one for me then. And then probably O'Sullivan and Closey. I'd probably go 1 Conway, 2 O'Sullivan, and 3 for Closey. I think Closey's going to have to work out ways to separate himself from players like Atkins, from players like Clark. He's going to have to prove he can do a couple of other things at the next level, because just tackling and contested ball probably won't be enough on their own at AFL level.
I agree. And we are recording this on the Sunday evening before the final few days of the AFL trade period. So who knows? We may get some new players in. There may be some players that maybe aren't going to be with us next year as well. You never know, do you? I'd personally have Connor O'Sullivan. I think he's going to come back about 8 kilos heavier full of muscle. We're gonna turn up at preseason training. Go, who's this bloke? He's huge. All right, Jake, let's round out the show with a few big stories from the year. Real quick, the Tyson Stengel health issue, that was a bit of a scare for all of us. Sounds like that's been put to bed. I know a lot of opposition fans are up in arms about that, and they still are, and they probably won't stop. The Tom Hawkins 4 games without a goal, that was pretty sad for Tom to see him go through those struggles, and eventually got back and kicked a couple of goals. But yeah, the injury got him in the end, didn't it? But I don't know if I'll comment on the Tanner Bruin one. I might just park that one and let that just play out. Well, I'll move on from the Tanner Bruin stuff. I've mentioned it, but I'm not going to say anything about it. Sam de Koning not being selected for finals. A lot of talk that he's a bit grumpy about that, and maybe he's gettable. Maybe he wants to go to Carlton and play with his brother Tom. But I think he's in for the long haul. He's not. They're not. Cats aren't going to let him touch. But who knows, mate? As I said, recording this on a Sunday night, maybe tomorrow he'll get traded to Carlton. For who knows? Jezza, I didn't like this, and I know Paul didn't either. When Jezza didn't go off the ground after being concussed, can't remember what game that was, but it was late in the game. It was a lot riding on it, and he refused to leave the ground after he hit his head after going for a marking contest or something like that. Dangerfield, we talked about this one, got a 1-game suspension overturned for a dangerous tackle on Sam Walsh from Carlton. Bombers fans blowing up over the deliberate rush behind where Ollie Dempsey went back and kicked a goal. Thank you very much. But the Bombers fans didn't like that at all. And finally, Jake, the AFL fans melt down at Geelong remaining a destination club during the 2024 trade period. What a season. And some of those stories that don't touch the Tanner Bruin one, but any of those other stories you want to go over again?
Just a couple of quick notes. Just a couple of quick notes. Sam de Koning not selected for finals. I mean, that swings and roundabouts. So surely he'll be thinking back to 2022. Max Holmes didn't get selected. Brandon Parfitt had to play as the sub. So you got to take it when it's your turn. It's your turn. And there's a list of 40 whatever players, and only 23 can be selected on the day. So I think that's probably just going to be a growth thing, surely, that you just deal with that as it comes. The Jeremy Cameron thing, I totally agree. You can't have players refusing to leave the ground. I sort of didn't realize that was what had happened. So, that's a big thing in all sports. Protect. You only get one brain. So protect it at all costs. And I don't think it's, you can't leave it up to the players, can you? Because they'll, there's a history of
I believe Octopus.
Yeah, exactly. Not that we're aware of, anyway.
Is it 4 brains or 2? They got more than 1, that's for sure. I'm pretty sure.
More than me. So the last one I'll just touch on, this is probably a good final thought from me, is just the AFL fans' meltdown over Geelong remaining a destination club during trade period. This is why you keep topping up. This is why you keep experienced players hanging around and you don't cut to the bone and clear out and go, we just got to rebuild. I follow a lot of college football, all about recruiting. And it's about creating a place and a culture of winning that players want to go to. And so even if in college football, you're not going to win a national championship this year. Hey, if we can still win 8 or 9 of our games, make a really good bowl game, that gets us, when we go out on the recruiting trail, we can now say, hey, look what we did and imagine what we could do with you. And you can sell them that dream. It's the same in the AFL. Okay, we made top 4 or you make finals and you don't go all the way. We probably had a slightly flawed list this year. There were some obvious holes and depth issues, but we won, 2/3 of our games. We went to the final 4. We can now go on the recruiting trail and say, hey, look what we did last year with a flawed list. All the coaching staff is relatively in place. We still have one of the greatest coaches of all time, who's won 2 flags from 3 grand finals. We've just rebuilt the home stadium. We've got young talent coming through. Imagine what we could do with you. Could we go that one step further? So I think that's really important to keep in mind as Cats fans. When we sometimes go, just play the kids or just do this or just do that, or we've just got to bottom out for a year. Bottoming out is the black plague of modern AFL, in my opinion. I think if you let that take hold in your club, you are pretty much doomed. So Try and win every year, even if you know you can't make the grand final, even if you know we're probably compromised at a few spots, because that winning is important because it maintains the integrity of what you're selling. And I think we would be surprised that it might only take a couple of seasons, 2 to 3 years of not making finals, and we might find that the Surf Coast lifestyle might not be as appealing as it currently is right now. It's important to keep winning, and that's why we remain a desirable location.
Well said, Jake. I love the way you finished off there. Leave us on a positive note for 2025. And you know what? This Hoops crew is going to keep winning as well. Thanks to all the fans for watching this year. We're not done yet. We're still doing all the AFLW stuff. We've got more stuff coming with the trade week, surely. Paul's been very busy the last week or so with his gaming side of things. But we've got heaps and heaps of stuff to come. We've got the national draft in November as well. But thank you for watching. Thanks to all our subscribers. Thanks to all the Patreon members. Thanks to the chaps. You, Jake, you've been awesome. Paul as well, if you're watching. Anyone who's engaged with the channel all year round, we really, really appreciate it. Thanks to the Geelong Football Club, the men's and the women's, and all the coaches and all the officials and all the staff. We love the footy club, don't we, Jake? And we're going to be here next year. And we're going to be bigger and better. Oh, mate, it's been fun. I love doing these shows. But should we play it? Should we play the team song? Should we play the Hoops team song on the way out, Jake? I reckon we
probably should.
We should play it on the way out. Thanks, guys. Go Cats. See you on the next one. Take care.